My name's Alex. I'm new to the booktubing community, though I have been aware of it for some time. I'm mid-late 20s from Australia, explains the accent. I just starting this channel for something to do. I love books. I've always been a reader. There's pictures of me as less than 1 year old, I think, with a book in my hand, so you know. Dad was reading the book to me, but I was less than one, which is the point. I have literally always been a reader. I read young adult, fantasy, history, sci-fi, dystopia, lots of, and I'm getting into own voices, so a lot of queer theory is something I'm reading, and feminist issues. Biographies, autobiographies, memoirs. I'm trying to branch out what I read. I spent so many years just reading fantasy, sci-fi, history, but I read a lot more now. Member of a young adult book club based from a podcast, and another book club, so that's also helping me read quite a number of things. And I'm doing a book bingo, which someone I know online has put together. That information is on my website, which I will link below, but it's alexandramtaylor.com. So far this year I've read 8 books, which I'm going to talk about today from newest to oldest. First up is Artemis by Andy Weir. First one of his books I've read. Haven't read the Martian yet. It's on my to-read list, which according to Goodreads is just over 1,450 long, but I'm also aware that it's missing a lot of books that I own and haven't read yet. Anyway, the Martian. Artemis is set 100 years in the future. It's another sci-fi novel, and is about Jazz, who's a pet criminal on the moon, and she's recruited to take out for a big crime, and it's just her life, her fallout, and everything that goes on in Artemis, which is the moon's city. Quick read, I enjoyed it. It was slightly predictable at times, but enjoyable. It's probably 3.5, 4 stars out of 5. Just before that, I read Ronan's Echo, which is a young adult, on the veins of Da Vinci Code. So it's got the double, sorry, with my knee, so my laptop moved. That's slightly better. Double storyline. So it's set, Kat is in modern day Australia. She's an anthropologist. So traveling the world, dating skeletons. And she's been recruited to go to France to identify the mass graves of Australian soldiers. In doing that, she discovers her great uncle's body and undiscovers a whole lot of family secrets. But it's also told, so her story is happening, but also the story of her great uncle and great grandfather and their family back in World War I is going on at the same time. It's a very easy, enjoyable read. I loved it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Before that was then Hunger by Roxane Gay. I'm sure we've all heard of her by now. It's her first one of her books I've actually read, and it was so confronting. I absolutely loved it. It was very intense. I connected it with some ways because I've struggled with food, and how it gave me the instant gratification she talked about. My reasons are very different though, but it focused on how it changed her body and her relationship with her body because of this. She has PTSD, and it's very obvious through the book. And while she has grown so much since the events that caused the PTSD, she's still impacted by it, as you may know. She's very well known. I very intense, very enjoyable, and worth the read, even if it isn't something you'd normally read. I gave that, well, let's say 5 out of 5 stars, but it was a lot more than that in actual fact. I've also read Hidden Figures by Margot Lee Shetterly, which the movie is based on. Very interesting. I've always loved space and NASA. I actually wanted to work for NASA, but I'm Australian, and I am also too short, and I didn't study physics and maths for various reasons. Incredibly interesting. It explores the role of the African American women who were employed as computers for NACA, or NASA as it is now known, and looks at race, segregation, race, sexism as well. So it's quite confronting at times as well, but it's done in a way that's really well researched, and it's not an area that's talked about. And I've read plenty about NASA and space and World War II, and I've never come across this before I saw the Hidden Figures movie. And that is such a shame, because it's such an important, integral part of our history. And it needs to be talked about more. But that's, like, fair warning though, the author, she's African American as well, does use the N-word, especially at the beginning. I believe there is more allowance for her because she is African American to use it, such as queer people using the word queer, but it was very, very jarring because I wasn't expecting it. Like Hunger, it gave multiple stars out of 5. It was brilliant. I've also read The Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. That was for my young adult book club. It's the story of Ursula from The Little Mermaid and how she actually became Ursula the Witch. Set in Denmark in the 1800s, it's historically accurate, which was really good. Easy read. It took, despite that, it took probably half, 3/4 of the book to really get going. I did enjoy the ending, I will admit that, but I nearly gave up. I don't give up often. Some of the plot was pretty predictable, and also some of it was not needed. There was like a love square going on, which was just pointless, honestly. But at the same time, it was interesting. Like, predictable, like I said, but it was interesting. I ended up giving that 3 out of 5 stars. The next review is Possibilities by Nicole Field, a local Melbourne author. It's a novella, high fantasy. Pretty much the king is dead, the heir's missing, so his youngest son takes over the throne. He's not wanted to become king ever and never expected it, so he's not been trained. He suffers from social anxiety. It is a novella, so it's about 70 pages and far too short. The jester he hires is gender fluid, and the way Nicole writes the gender fluid jester is really well done. The entire plot is well done, and my only regret is that it's not longer. She is writing more in the same universe though. I ended up giving that 4 out of 5 stars. Next book I'm going to talk about is Can We All Be Feminists? It's a collection of intersectional essays by various authors from African Americans, Muslims, lesbians, transgender African Americans, bisexual Catholics. There's a whole wide range of people, and it was really interesting to look into how their lives are affected, and in many ways that you don't think of as well. Like the Muslim person, their feminism is very different because their culture is very different to white and feminism and white culture. And it's definitely a book I think everyone should read because it's such an eye-opening book. Because I like to think I'm pretty woke, and into all of that. But there was so much that made me sit back and go, oh. And it's not just those, but it also disabilities it looks into as well. And it goes, that's not something like, I didn't connect it with disability as a feminist issue, but there really is that overlap. Anyway, it's a very interesting book that I also think everyone should read, and another 5 out of 5 stars. And then the first book I read this year was The Identicals by Alan Hildebrand. It was another book club book. Not a book I'd normally pick up. It's a summer read, so basic, very easy read. I enjoyed it more than I expected. Twin sisters were born to a highly successful mother and a very run-of-the-mill father. When they were 17, their parents divorced, and one went to live with the father, one went to live with the mother, very a la Parent Trap. Except they obviously knew of each other and spent summers with the alternate parent. It looks into the sisters no longer talk after something happened 14 years ago, and it deals with the fallout of all of that, and just what happens when their father dies, and what brings them back together. It's a trashy summer read. I'm surprised I enjoyed it as much as I did. I gave that 3 out of 5 stars. I did start reading Bridge of Clay by Marcus Cusack. I did not finish it. It's an interesting concept, but the writing style was very jarring, and I just could not get into it. I got to about 100 pages in. It's about 600 pages long. I'm reading a couple of other books at the moment, but I will talk about them in a later video. Anyway, I'm Alex. You can find me at alexandramtaylor.com, Twitter at AlyMTaylor, so that's ALYMTaylor. That's also my Instagram handle, and I look forward to getting to know all of you. Bye!